The socio-political implications of the Holy Mass. Does the Holy Mass have socio-political implications, and what are those implications? Yes, the Holy Mass has socio-political implications because even though Jesus Christ said that his kingdom is not of this world, he still reigns beneath the earth, on earth, and above the earth owing to the uniqueness of his kingship. In the words of Giorgio, in fact, even the Eucharistic celebration sumum puncti of the Catholic faith has socio-political implications. Accordingly, the Paschal mystery of Christ was born out of politics of God's intention to establish justice and effective freedom in the world. Eucharistic celebration is thus political, and as such liberative. Just as the Jewish Passover celebrates the liberation of the people of God from the house of bondage, so does the Eucharist celebrate freedom of mankind. The political implication of the Eucharistic celebration, which is the proclamation of justice and love of God, charges the participants to be political and to work for justice in the world. The political involvement of the participants is not optional. Those who share in the body and blood of Christ should also share in his political commitment. They must work for the elimination of injustices in the world, and this involves conflicts and confrontations. Hence, after worshipping God in the Eucharistic celebration, the Christians are bound to go into the world and continue proclaiming the same justice and love of God celebrated in the Eucharist in their daily lives. The words of Tissa Balisaria must be kept ever fresh in memory. Unless there is a twofold dimension of personal love and social action, the Eucharist can be a sacrilege. Therefore, unless there is a change of attitude on the part of Christians who have cultivated the bad habit of idle prayerfulness in political matters, it is already high time they are sent packing from the pews in our various chapels or churches until they learn that faith without good work is dead. James 2:17. The words of the scripture in Hosea chapter 4 verse 6 says, "My people perish for want of knowledge." It is the duty of the leaders of the church in today's world, especially in Nigeria, to open the eyes of their flock to the reality on ground, inspire and empower them in different ways to ensure that they get their daily bread and stop coming for church activities with empty stomach or while they are hungry. What are some of the socio-political implications of the Holy Mass? 1. The Holy Mass reminds us of our identity as the salt of the earth and light of the world. You are like salt for the whole human race. But if salt loses its saltiness, there is no way to make it salty again. It has become worthless, so it is thrown out and people trample on it. You are like light for the whole world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. Your light must shine before people, so that they will see the good things you do and praise your Father in heaven. Matthew chapter 5 verses 13-16. As the salt of the earth and the light of the world, many Christians, especially in Nigeria, resort to a faithful and devout recitation of prayer for Nigeria in distress and prayer against bribery and corruption in Nigeria, while withdrawing themselves from any political involvement in a practical sense, forgetting that the Church praises and esteems those who devote themselves to the public good for the service of men and take upon themselves the burdens of public office, and teaches that the Christian who shirks his temporal duties, shirks his duties toward his neighbor, neglects God himself and endangers his eternal salvation. 2. The Holy Mass challenges us to work for social changes and better societies while praying for economic justice. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., we must pray unrelentingly for economic justice, but we must also work diligently to bring into being those social changes that make for a better distribution of wealth within our nation. From St. James, we learn that faith without good work is dead. James chapter 2 verse 17. St. Pope John Paul II once noted, "The life of a democracy could not be productive without the active, responsible, and generous involvement of everyone, albeit in a diversity and complementarities of forms, levels, tasks and responsibilities." In the same vein, William Barclay wrote that, because the Christian is a man of honor, he must be a responsible citizen, failure in good citizenship is also failure in Christian duty. Untold troubles can descend upon a country or an industry when Christians refuse to take their part in the administration and leave it to selfish, self-seeking, and unchristian men. But a real Christian is at one and the same time a good citizen of his country and a good citizen of the kingdom of heaven. He will fail in his duty neither to God nor to man. He will, as Peter said, fear God and honor the emperor. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 17. There is no better way of retaining our sweet taste as salt of the earth and playing our role of dispelling darkness as the light of the world apart from getting involved in public affairs and remaining true to our identity in the process, because the involvement of the church in public affairs is an essential dimension of the gospel. In the words of Bob Snyder, the best way to kill a church is to squeeze it into a building. For without contact with people in need and publicly witnessing faith and trust in Jesus Christ, a church will quietly die. The church is not a dormitory for sleepers, it is an institution for workers, it is not artist camp, it is a front-line trench. In the same vein, Pope Paul VI wrote that evangelization will not be complete unless it constantly relates the gospel to men's actual lives, personal and social. Archbishop Fulton Sheen wrote in a similar manner, religion has moved out of the church, to a large extent, to cope with our frustrations, despairs, shames and neuroses. The only mistake the church can make in the new order is to assume that everybody must come to them instead of their going to everybody. The church is in the world to continue to work of Jesus Christ, who came that we may have life and have it in abundance. John chapter 10 verse 10. Therefore, the Church, with her laity taking active part in partisan politics, and her clergy, not being aligned to any political party or system, must champion such causes as social justice, just wages, human rights, and so on and so forth. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, to preach religion to one who is hungry is like insulting him. The role of religion is to bring the light of knowledge to those who grope in darkness and to join in the struggle of the weak and poor in their efforts in the creation of a brighter future. According to Martin Luther King Jr., a religion that professes a concern for the souls of men and is not equally concerned about the slums that damn them, the economic conditions that strangle them, and the social conditions that cripple them, is a spiritual moribund religion. It is only an irrelevant religion fails to be concerned about man's economic well-being. Religion at its best realizes that the soul is crushed as long as the body is tortured with hunger pangs and harrowed with the need for shelter. 3. The Holy Mass challenges the Church to remain the conscience of the state. The Church is the conscience of the state. In line with our God-given identity as the salt of the earth and the light of the world, the leaders of the Church today should borrow a leaf from some biblical and historical heroes while representing the Church as the conscience of the state. Amos courageously stated that the sacrifice of the wealthy of Israel would be accepted only if they let justice run like a river. Amos chapter 2 verses 6 to 16, chapter 4 verses 1 to 3, and chapter 5 verse 24. When David took Uriah's wife and had him killed at war, an act of grave injustice, the prophet Nathan confronted the king with the truth and told him to his face, "You are the man." 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 7. When King Ahab killed Naboth and confiscated his vineyard, Elijah did not think it was time for pious exhortations and passionate appeals. The prophet confronted Ahab with the truth and said, "I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do what is evil in the sight of the Lord." 1 Kings chapter 21 verse 20. John the Baptist did the same when Herod took Philip's wife unjustly. Luke chapter 3 verse 19. Jesus Christ openly described Herod, ruler of Galilee, as that fox. Luke chapter 13 verse 32. He also spoke out in irony about the custom of rulers to give themselves the high-sounding title of benefactor of the people though they ruled by force. Luke chapter 22 verse 25. Historically, we recall that Saint Pope John Paul II, both as an archbishop in his native Poland and as Pope, helped the Polish people to pull down the walls of communism and liberate the people into the freedom of the children of God. It required the voice of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for the Negroes to regain their God-given rights not only as human beings but as citizens of America. Archbishop Desmond Tutu's voice against apartheid in South Africa and the sacrifices of Oscar Romero of El Salvador brought real fresh air into those countries where they exercised their prophetic ministries. Cardinal Sin of Manila led a successful revolution of the people that brought an end to the oppressive rule of President Ferdinand Marcos, using the instrument of mass demonstrations that are nonviolent. Bearing in mind the mission of the Church in the world, it is not enough to desire a just, democratic and peaceful society. As individuals and groups, we must make necessary sacrifices to bring such a society about. The Church must be in the forefront of such a struggle, if she really understands her mission as the salt of the earth, the light of the world, and the conscience of the nation. The Church owes the world the duty not only of preaching the gospel and social thought, but also of social action, says Pope John XXIII. For the Holy Mass reminds us that religion should not be restricted to the private sphere. At the end of every Eucharistic celebration or Holy Mass, the priest says, "God forth," the Mass is ended and the participants respond, "Thanks be to God." The "Go forth," the Mass is ended is a reminder that we go into the world to put into practice what we have celebrated. We are expected to go and sacrifice our time, talent, and even life for the good of others and for a better human society. That's where the socio-political implication of the Holy Mass comes in. Pope Francis in his encyclical letter, Evangelii Gaudium, precisely number 182 noted, "It is no longer possible to claim that religion should be restricted to the private sphere and that it exists only to prepare souls for heaven. We know that God wants His children to be happy in this world too, even though they are called to fulfillment mentioned in eternity, for He has created all things for our enjoyment and the enjoyment of everyone." 5. Just as the Holy Mass is a reenactment of the Calvary sacrifice, in the same vein, we cannot ignore the fact that Jesus Christ was born as the King of the universe during a census event, which is a socio-political activity. It is the same Jesus Christ who is born on the altar during the Holy Mass via the words of consecration pronounced by the priest. Indeed, the Holy Mass has socio-political implications. If you learned something from this message, kindly subscribe to this channel. Remember to like and share the message with others. God bless you.